Chapter 1. The night of the red sky, the moon hung heavy and swollen above the pines, a crimson coin bleeding across the midnight sky. Every wolf in the Silvercrest territory felt it, the restless pulse of the coming blood moon. To some, it was a night of celebration. To Liara, it was the night her heart would be chained. She stood alone on the balcony of the Alpha Keep, the cold wind tangling her dark hair as the drums of her pack echoed through the valley. Below, fires blazed in a ring around the great stone circle where the mating oath would soon be sworn. The scent of burning cedar mixed with the musk of 1,000 wolves, a perfume of excitement and dread. Her wolf stirred restlessly inside her. Not him, it whispered. Not tonight. But duty was a weight heavier than any chain. Tomorrow, she would be bound to Darius Blackfang, the heir of the rival Blackfang pack, a union meant to end a century of bloodshed between their lands. A union she had not chosen. The treaty demanded an alpha's heir from each pack. As the Silvercrest princess, she had been raised for this night. Liara's claws itched beneath her skin. Somewhere beyond the pine ridges, the rival pack was already approaching. And somewhere closer than her own heartbeat, he was watching. A shadow shifted at the far end of the balcony. Kale, her protector, her beta. The one wolf her soul recognized before her mind could form his name. "Your scent is a storm tonight," Kale murmured, stepping into the pale glow of moonlight. His eyes, silver shot through with streaks of gold, held hers like a secret. "You're trembling." Liara forced her spine straight. "It's the cold." It was a lie. The night air was warm with the heat of the approaching blood moon, but Kale's presence sent a shiver through every nerve. He tilted his head, listening to the far-off howl of the rival pack. "They're coming down the ridge. You should be inside. Your father will." "I know what my father will say," she cut in. "He will remind me of my duty. He will tell me to smile when I pledge myself to a wolf I do not love, and he will pretend not to hear the part of me that howls in protest." Kale stepped closer, close enough for her to catch the wild cedar scent of his skin, the scent that always unraveled her control. His jaw tightened, but his voice was soft. "Your father would kill me for this," he said, "but I can't stay silent tonight." The blood moon amplifies the call of a true bond. If your wolf is fighting this union, Liara, you need to listen. Her chest ached with the force of her heartbeat. "My wolf wants—" She couldn't finish. Kale's gaze burned into her. "I know what she wants." His hand brushed hers, just a whisper of contact, and her wolf surged upward, a wild, aching cry that nearly drove her to shift right there on the balcony. Below, a horn sounded, the signal that the Blackfang heir had entered Silvercrest lands. The mating ceremony was minutes away. Kale's hand lingered near hers, trembling. "Say the word," he whispered, "and I'll take you beyond the pines before the first vow is spoken. We'll outrun the moonlight." The choice hit her like lightning: duty, pack, peace, or desire, bond, love. But the blood moon had other plans. A sudden, bone-deep howl rolled across the valley, long, raw, and laced with power. The sound made the stones beneath her feet vibrate. Kale stiffened. That was Darius. Liara's blood chilled. Every instinct in her body screamed that something ancient had awakened, a power older than any treaty. And in the echo of that howl, her wolf whispered a truth that stole her breath. The blood moon has chosen, and its choice will shatter every vow. Chapter 2. The air of shadows. The sound of the howl still quivered in the air as Liara descended the balcony steps, Kale at her side. The courtyard below was alive with restless energy. Wolves in ceremonial robes paced and sniffed the wind, their eyes reflecting the blood-red moon. The elders whispered to one another, unease sharp in their scents. Whatever had called out across the valley was not part of the ceremony, and every instinct warned it was dangerous. The great gates of the Silvercrest Keep groaned open. A hush rippled through the gathered wolves. The Blackfang delegation entered in a tight formation, their dark cloaks trailing across the stone like spilled ink. At their center strode Darius Blackfang, the male who was to be Liara's mate. He was taller than she expected, with shoulders broad as a mountain pass. Silver streaked the black of his hair, though he could not be more than a few years older than she. His eyes, a glacial blue, burned with an intensity that felt less like heat and more like a winter storm. When those eyes found hers, a sharp jolt of power lanced through her chest, an alpha's aura, commanding and cold. The crowd parted as Darius approached the stone circle. Behind him came a black-robed priestess carrying a bowl of moonwater for the oath. Her gaze lingered on Liara with something close to pity. Kale's fingers brushed Liara as they reached the edge of the circle. It was a fleeting contact, hidden from the elders, but it steadied her heartbeat. "I'm here," the touch said, no matter what. Princess Liara, Darius said, his voice deep and velvet-edged. When he bowed, the silver clasp at his cloak glinted in the moonlight, a wolf's head biting its own tail. It is an honor to stand beneath the blood moon with you. Liara forced her lips into the polite smile of diplomacy. The honor is shared, Alfair. But inside, her wolf recoiled. The mate bond should have stirred at his nearness, a magnetic pull toward union. Instead, there was only static, like standing too close to a storm that promised lightning but never delivered. The priestess raised her voice. On this night of the blood moon, two packs seek peace through sacred bond. The oath demands truth. The oath demands sacrifice. Her words carried easily through the cold night air, but before she could continue, another sound slashed across the valley, a second howl, closer now and far more feral than the first. The crowd shuddered as the sound rattled the stones. Several younger wolves dropped to their knees, whimpering. Even the elders stiffened. Darius's eyes narrowed. That is not one of my wolves. Kale stepped forward, nostrils flaring. It came from the Shadow Gorge, he said, voice low. That territory has been abandoned for generations. The priestess dipped a claw into the moonwater, her face pale. The Shadow Gorge was the birthplace of the first curse, she whispered. To howl beneath the blood moon from that place, it is an omen. Liara's father, Alpha Thuron, bared his teeth. We continue the ceremony, he declared. No superstition will break this treaty. But as he spoke, a sudden thrum rolled through the ground. The fires around the circle flickered blue, bending toward the moon as if pulled by unseen hands. The scent of iron filled the air, rich, metallic. Unmistakable. Blood. Kale's hand found Liara's elbow. Princess, something's wrong. That smell. Before he could finish, a shadow leapt from the tree line at the far end of the clearing. It moved too fast for mortal eyes, a blur of fur and silver claws. Wolves shouted and shifted, the courtyard exploding into chaos. The creature landed on the stones with a thunderous crack. It was enormous, larger than any alpha wolf, its coat black as midnight except for streaks of luminous crimson that pulsed with the moonlight. Its eyes blazed the same deep red as the moon above. A collective growl rippled through the pack, but the creature didn't attack. It stood perfectly still, gaze fixed on Liara. In the sudden silence, it spoke. The blood moon chooses its own. The voice was deep, echoing inside her skull rather than through the air. Her wolf surged against her skin, claws scraping to break free. Kale stepped protectively in front of her, but the creature's gaze never left hers. Darius growled, low and lethal. Shadowborn, he hissed. This night is cursed. The creature tilted its massive head. Princess of Silvercrest, your oath is not to him. The words ignited something wild in Liara's chest. Her heart hammered as the blood moon light seemed to burn brighter, pressing against her bones. Her wolf whispered the truth she had tried to deny, mate. But it wasn't whispering about Darius. It was screaming for the shadowed creature standing before her. Kale tightened his grip on her arm. Liara, he breathed, voice rough with fear. Don't move. But it was already too late. The creature took a single step toward her, and the earth itself trembled in recognition. Chapter 3. The shadow claimed the creature's crimson eyes locked on Liara, glowing with a heat that pierced bone and soul. The world around her blurred, wolves shouting, elders barking orders, the crack of claws against stone, until all that remained was the slow, thunderous beat of its heart echoing inside her own. Kale shifted to his wolf form in a flash of silver fur, placing himself squarely between Liara and the intruder. His hackles rose, teeth bared in a snarl that could split mountains. Mind to protect, his wolf growled through the bond they shared as Alpha and Beta. Darius Blackfang moved almost as quickly. In a single motion, he flung his cloak aside and let his own shift ripple across his body. Bones cracked, muscles stretched, and an obsidian-furred alpha wolf replaced the prince, his blue eyes like frozen lightning. He circled the intruder, lips curled back to reveal gleaming fangs. The shadow wolf did not flinch. It lowered its head, focusing only on Liara. When it spoke, its voice poured through her mind like molten silver. Blood of Silvercrest, blood of the first moon. Your bond is written in the marrow of the earth. The treaty is a lie. The blood moon calls you to me. The words struck her like claws to the heart. Her wolf surged forward, tearing at the barriers of her skin, desperate to meet that call. Heat flashed through her veins, pure visceral recognition. This wasn't attraction. This was destiny. No, Liara whispered, stumbling back. Her voice trembled, but her mind reeled with an impossible truth. This stranger, this monster, was her true mate. The elders shouted spells of warding, their voices thin against the howl of the wind. The fires around the circle bent wildly toward the shadow wolf, flames dancing crimson and blue as if caught between worlds. Alpha Thuron's command cracked across the chaos. "Seize it!" Warriors lunged, their bodies mid-shift, but the shadow wolf released a single, earth-shaking roar. A shockwave of raw power rolled outward, hurling the attackers backward like leaves in a gale. Even Darius skidded across the stone, claws scraping sparks. The creature turned its burning gaze to Kale, who stood his ground despite the tremor in his legs. "Protector," it rumbled inside their minds. "Your loyalty will cost you more than blood." Kale growled, a sound of defiance and warning all at once. Through the bond of Beta to Alpha's air, Liara felt the storm of his emotions, fear, fury, and something darker, jealousy. Darius shook himself and lunged again, claws flashing. But the shadow wolf blurred into motion, faster than sight. One heartbeat it stood before Liara, the next it was behind her, its heat pressing against her back without ever touching. Her wolf keened, every instinct begging her to turn, to lean into that wild power. "Princess," it murmured inside her skull, a voice both tender and terrifying. "Say the word and the moon will bind us as one. The curse will end, the pacts will bow, and no treaty will decide your fate." Her breath hitched. The curse. Old legends told of a first moon curse, of a union that would break or save the world. Her mother's lullabies returned in fragments. When the blood moon bleeds, the air of silver meets the wolf of shadow, and the night decides the dawn. Kale snarled and stepped closer, silver fur bristling. Liara, his mind voice cut through her haze. "Don't listen. Whatever it isn't your mate." But her wolf howled back with savage certainty. "It is." Darius regained his stance, eyes blazing. "Princess, move away." His alpha command rolled like thunder, designed to force obedience. To her shock, her body refused to respond. The shadow wolf's presence drowned out Darius's dominance as easily as the tide swallows a footprint. The priestess clutched her moonwater bowl, voice quaking. "The blood moon," it recognizes him. "The first bond awakens." A sudden gust ripped through the circle, extinguishing every fire at once. Darkness swallowed the clearing, leaving only the blood moon's eerie glow and the luminous streaks along the shadow wolf's fur. It stepped closer until its breath warmed the back of her neck. "Choose, Silvercrest." The voice vibrated through her bones. "A treaty made in fear or a bond forged in truth. Speak my name and the moon will mark you." Liara's lips parted, though she had never heard its name. Kale leapt, a blur of silver fury. Darius lunged from the opposite side, two alphas clashing against an unknown power. But the shadow wolf simply raised its head to the blood moon and released a howl so deep it cracked the very stone beneath their feet. The ground split with a thunderous roar. Moonlight poured into the fissure, spiraling upward like liquid fire. And in the blinding crimson light, Liara heard it, a single word, ancient and aching, whispered directly into her heart. "Kaelin!" Her knees buckled. The name burned with impossible familiarity. The shadow wolf turned its head just enough for her to see the glint of silver beneath the crimson glow. Her breath caught. It wasn't a stranger. It was Kale. Chapter 4. The blood of two moons. The world tilted. Liara's breath froze as the shadow wolf's crimson glow ebbed. Revealing fur of silver streaked with black, the unmistakable pattern of the beta who had guarded her since childhood. Kale. Her Kale. The realization struck harder than any shockwave. It was his scent, wild cedar and storm air, that had haunted her dreams. His voice, buried in the creature's echo that had whispered her name like a prayer. He had been standing beside her all along, hiding a truth that could shatter the packs. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Warriors howled in fury. Elders barked commands. The Blackfang wolves bared their fangs, ready to kill the intruder who had dared disrupt the sacred oath. Alpha Thuron's roar split the night. "Kale!" His voice was a blade of disbelief and rage. "What treachery is this?" Kale stepped forward, silver eyes glowing with the red light of the moon. His body trembled between forms, neither fully man nor wolf, but something older, more primal. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of prophecy. "I am Shadowborn," he said, his voice a low growl that rolled through every stone of the circle. "Blood of Silvercrest, blood of Blackfang, heir to the first moon." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Shadowborn. The cursed bloodline whispered of in legends, the child of two rival packs born beneath a blood moon destined to unite or destroy them. Darius shifted back to human, chest heaving, eyes blazing ice. "Lies," he spat. "No Shadowborn could survive. The elders purged them generations ago." Kale's gaze burned with quiet fury. Your elders tried, my mother died to hide me, my father. His voice faltered, then steadied. My father was a Blackfang Alpha. The revelation struck like lightning. Half Silvercrest, half Blackfang, the forbidden union made flesh. Liara's father bared his teeth, claws slicing the air. You dare reveal this on the night of my daughter's oath? You endanger everything. Kale met his alpha's fury without flinching. The danger was always the treaty. The curse demands a true bond to end the bloodshed, not a false vow to please frightened elders. His eyes found Liara, and for a heartbeat the chaos fell away. The pull between them was no longer a whisper but a roar, their wolves howling in perfect harmony. Her soul surged toward his like a river breaking a dam, but duty clawed at her chest. Peace. The packs. My people. Darius stepped forward, rage twisting his handsome features. This farce ends now, he snapped, turning to the priestess. Complete the oath, bind us before the moon sets. The priestess trembled, moonwater bowls shaking in her claws. I cannot, the blood moon rejects the union. A hush fell over the clearing. Liara's father snarled. Then I will end it myself. He leapt toward Kale, claws flashing. Liara moved without thought. Her wolf exploded from her skin in a cascade of silver fur, intercepting the alpha mid-lunge. The impact sent them both skidding across the stones. Gasps erupted from the crowd. An alpha's heir had just challenged her own father. Thuron rose slowly, shock and fury warring in his eyes. Liara, he growled through the alpha link, stand down. But her wolf stood tall, hackles raised, teeth bared. No, she answered, her voice a mental snarl. The moon has chosen. Kale approached, his shadow aura pulsing like a second heartbeat. Princess, he said aloud, voice both plea and command. Let me show them. Before she could reply, the blood moon flared brighter, bathing the stone circle in crimson fire. Kale threw back his head and howled. The sound was deeper than any wolf's cry, a resonance that made the earth itself tremble. Silver light burst from the fissures in the stone, spiraling upward. Symbols of both packs, crescent moon and black fang, blazed in the air before merging into a single sigil. The gathered wolves dropped to their knees as the ancient mark of unity hovered above them, pulsing with living light. Kale's voice thundered across the clearing, layered with the primal echo of the first moon. I am the bond you tried to bury. I am the blood of both packs. The curse ends tonight if she accepts me. Every gaze turned to Liara. The moonlight burned against her fur, hot as a lover's touch. Her wolf pressed against her heart, urging her forward. Her human heart pounded with fear and desire. If she accepted him, the treaty would shatter. Old enemies would rise. But the war between packs would finally have a chance to end, and her soul would finally be whole. Kale stepped closer, eyes glowing like molten silver. Liara, he said softly, the chaos fatting around them, say my name and we will end this together. Her lips parted. Her heart howled. The moon waited, and in that breathless silence she whispered, Kale. The blood moon erupted in blinding light. Chapter 5. The bond of the first moon. The instant Liara spoke Kale's name, the blood moon answered. Crimson light exploded outward, a blinding flare that swallowed the stone circle in a cyclone of silver and red. The ground trembled as ancient runes ignited beneath their feet, symbols of the first wolves, marks of power long thought lost. Every wolf in the courtyard fell silent, pinned by an invisible force that demanded witness. Kale stepped into the center of the storm. The red glow along his fur burned brighter until it bled into pure silver, streaked with black shadow. He raised his head and howled, and Liara's wolf answered before her mind could even catch up. Their voices twined together in a perfect, primal harmony that pierced the heavens. The moonlight surged downward, wrapping around them like living fire. It was not just light, it was power, old as the first howl, wrapping their hearts in a single rhythm. Liara gasped as heat and cold collided inside her chest. Every nerve sang with Kale's presence. His heartbeat thundered against hers until she could no longer tell which belonged to whom. The bond snapped into place, not the tentative pull of an arranged mate, not the soft glow of a treaty. This was raw, eternal. The first bond, blood of Silvercrest, blood of Blackfang. Two packs fused in the marrow of the earth. The power flared outward like a shockwave. Warriors dropped to their knees, their wolves bowing to an authority older than any alpha command. The priestess cried out, clutching the moonwater bowl to her chest as the liquid inside shimmered to silver. When the light finally dimmed, Liara and Kale stood side by side in their human forms, breathless and glowing faintly beneath the crimson moon. A silvery mark now curved along Liara's collarbone, half crescent, half fang. Kale bore the same mark along his jaw. The crowd stared in stunned silence. Alpha Thuron's face was a mask of fury and fear. "You have doomed us all," he spat, his voice shaking with the effort to resist the power that now pulsed in the air. "The Shadowborn curse will." "The curse is broken," the priestess interrupted, her eyes wide with awe. Her voice carried like the ringing of a bell. "The blood moon does not curse, it binds. The first bond was never a doom, it was a promise." Darius Blackfang stepped forward, eyes cold but glittering with something darker than anger, envy, maybe, or grudging respect. "You've taken what was meant to forge peace," he said quietly. "Now peace will be forced whether we want it or not." Kale's gaze locked with Darius's, steady and unyielding. "No more forced treaties, no more blood. The moon has chosen the union that the elders feared. The pacts will unite or be broken by the night." A ripple of murmurs passed through the gathered wolves. Some nodded in quiet recognition. Others bared their teeth in silent rebellion. Alpha Thuron's jaw tightened. "You think this bond will save you? The old ways will not yield so easily." Kale's voice was calm, but his power resonated through every stone. "Then let the old ways burn." The blood moonlight swirled once more, rising in a final spiral before bursting into a shower of silver sparks that rained over the courtyard. Each spark that touched fur or skin left behind a faint shimmer, tiny marks of unity that no elder could erase. Liara turned to her father, her new bond humming warm and steady in her chest. "I will not marry for politics," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I will lead as the moon intended, with Kale, as alpha and alpha mate." Thuron's shoulders sagged, the fury in his eyes giving way to reluctant understanding. "You've bound yourself to a future that cannot be undone," he said softly. "Pray the moon favors you when the old enemies rise." Kale took Liara's hand, his thumb brushing the silver mark at her collarbone. "They can rise," he said, voice low but carrying. "They'll find we rise higher." Liara squeezed his hand, her wolf purring beneath her skin. For the first time, the moon above felt like a promise, not a threat. As the blood moon began to fade toward silver dawn, Kale leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "We survived the first night," he murmured. "Now comes the real fight." Liara smiled, heart steady against his. "Let them come," she whispered back. "We are Shadowborn, we are one." Above them, the fatting moon seemed to glow a final time, a silent blessing on the bond that would change the world.